that really we can use the same standard. And I think that the focus here in a child serving system would be both around, the question would be, does the adult survivor and the child survivor of the domestic violence, do they of the system made their lives better? And really to use that broadly, it's not just safer, but around safety, satisfaction, and self-determination. And those are touchstones that I use, that I evaluate the work we've done. I come out of the background of doing work with perpetrators, and even though we work directly with the domestic violence perpetrator, the work was really focused in on ultimately the client, or the measure of success was, did it make things better for the adult and child survivor of domestic violence? And I think across those three domains, safety, physical safety, emotional safety, action, pleasure, your life more meaningful, and self-determination. Has our intervention increased their choices and their agency and their ability to control what happens to them? And so again, I think these are reasonable measures for us to ask when we're looking at domestic violence-informed child welfare systems, that the answer should on the whole be, yes, child welfare getting involved with me as a domestic violence survivor, adult and child, it improved my safety, improved my self-determination, and it improved the satisfaction, the quality of life, and the well-being. And so this is what we're hoping for. This is what we're looking for. And we're hoping that this continuum of domestic violence practice helps these systems, practitioners reflect on where they are and where they'd like to go. And I'm going to obviously go into more detail about it, but at one end we have this idea that domestic violence destructive practices exist. An example of that is a child welfare system that expects a domestic violence victim to get a stay-away order or an injunction or a protection order, regardless of the perpetrator's pattern, regardless of what it will do in reality based on that pattern to their safety, in order to maintain their kids or to remove child welfare from their lives. And in that case, when family in greater danger. So at one end you have domestic violence destructive behavior. At the other end you have domestic violence proficiency. And with that, what you have is a good understanding of domestic violence, and I'm going to go into details of this, that is institutionalized into training, into practice, into policy, into services, into cross-systems collaboration. And under proficiency, it's also built into quality assurance, it's built into leadership, and it doesn't go away when new initiatives start up. So it's really built into the DNA of the child welfare system in a constructive, positive way, as opposed to the opposite end. It really actually, our involvement makes things worse, and the answer to the question, made this better for you, would actually be no, it's actually made things worse. And so what I'd like to do is just ask people in a moment to kind of assess where they are themselves, where they think they are now, and then we'll kind of ask at the end again where you think you are. So domestic violence destructive is where there's an active negative impact. Domestic violence incapable really captures this idea of we don't see it, it really doesn't matter, it's not a factor for us, we don't respond to it. Domestic violence blindness, and I'm summarizing these things so you can get a sense of it. Domestic violence blindness is, but we don't have specialized services, we don't have specialized assessment for it. An example of this is, well, we send everybody to the same parenting program regardless of the issue. Domestic violence pre-competence is often characterized by some training, some acknowledgement that it's an issue, some idea of there needs to be a specialized response. But in pre-competence, often the response is exclusively or strongly focused still on the domestic violence survivor, not on the perpetrator. And as you move up this continuum, you'll see a shift with more of a focus on the perpetrator, more sophistication, more training, more understanding of what it means to practice in a perpetrator pattern-based way. And so what you see under pre-competence is often, well, we do a couple of hours of training in pre-service, but we really don't have it integrated into our practice model, into our meetings, into our services. And what changes as you move to competence is you see greater investment in resources. So now you may see coaches and specialists in competence around domestic violence. You may see training for supervisors, not just for frontline staff in when they're new workers, for instance. And so when you really move up the line, you begin to see greater investment in resources, greater investment in services, greater investment in collaboration. So you look at child fatality teams, for instance, when you get to competence and proficiency and say, well, where are they with their integration of domestic violence into child fatality reviews? Another example at competence and proficiency is you see greater integration into conversations about hotline or intake. Oftentimes in pre-competence,